2 years have passed, yet the memory of that day lingers in my mind, haunting me like an unfinished symphony. What began as a simple outing with my son Ethan on a sun-drenched beach soon morphed into something I could never have anticipated. A single moment, so subtle, so fleeting, shifted everything inside me. And now, every time I close my eyes, I feel it. A presence that was never meant to be, a boundary crossed that should never have been approached. Not in action, but in thought. Was it the fleeting mistake? Or something deeper? Something I can never undo? Some moments, it is said, weave themselves into the very fabric of our memory, remaining there for all time. A linger like whispers, silent yet ever watchful. 2 years have passed since that fateful day. 2 years since everything changed forever. A marriage in shadows. For more than 15 years, Blaze and I have shared the bond of marriage. To outsiders, we looked like a perfect family. 2 children, a charming home, a life wrapped in stability. Those who knew us painted a picture of joy. Yet the truth was very different. Cracks had formed in the foundation long before anyone could see them. They weren't loud, dramatic cracks that shake walls. They were silent ones, hairline fractures that spread so slowly, you almost believed nothing was wrong. Until one day, the entire structure no longer felt safe. Blaze was a man consumed by his work. He chased success with a devotion so complete that it often left no space for us. For me, his job became the rhythm of our lives. His absences became so routine that eventually, even his presence felt absent. I told myself it was temporary, that his sacrifices were for us, for our future. But futures are slippery things. They promise warmth while they rob the present of it. Thank you for listening. What worth does a home hold if it stands empty, untouched by love? When he did come home, he carried exhaustion on his face, like a second skin. His kisses were brief, his words rushed, his thoughts already entangled in the next day's obligations. We lived in the same house, but walked through it like strangers. I became invisible. He stopped asking how I felt, what I needed, what dreams I still carried. Our conversations narrowed to bills, groceries, school schedules. Even his laughter was reserved for the children, while for me, there was only silence. The lonely road to the beach. That morning, Blaze once again announced he wouldn't be joining us. Another urgent matter at work. Another silent apology hidden in his hurried glance before the door closed behind him. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream. But instead, I nodded, swallowing my disappointment, as I always did. So it was just Ethan and me. He was 16 then, tall, lanky, carrying himself with the restless independence of youth. His brown eyes mirrored his father's, yet softer, gentler. There was a quietness about him that sometimes unsettled me, though perhaps it was simply the nature of teenagers, caught between childhood and adulthood. When I told him it would be only the 2 of us, he shrugged without protest. He was used to his father's absence by now. That realization alone carved something heavy into my chest. As we drove, he sat in the passenger seat with earphones nestled in, staring out the window, lost in thought. I stole glances at him, marveling at how quickly he was growing, how little time I had before he would leave this house and build a life of his own. The beach that waited, the road stretched endlessly. Yet eventually the sea appeared, glimmering under the merciless summer sun. We carried our bags across the sand, our footprints sinking into its golden surface. Ethan set up the umbrella while I folded towels with deliberate care, pretending not to notice how strange it felt to be there without Blaze. The beach was nearly empty, a wide expanse of shimmering water and endless horizon. For a moment, I allowed myself to breathe, to believe that perhaps today would be different. We talked, lightly at first, about school, about Lily, about small things that floated on the surface of life. There was something comforting about speaking with him, not as mother and child, but simply as two people sharing a quiet moment away from the chaos of routine. The sun was relentless, pouring its fire onto our skin. I reached for the bottle of sunscreen and asked him if he could help me with my back. It was a casual request, a mother's ask of her son, nothing more. He hesitated at first, then nodded. His hands were careful, tentative, almost clumsy. And in that simple gesture, so innocent, so ordinary, I felt something within me shift. It wasn't his touch that shook me. It was the realization of how long it had been since anyone had touched me at all. Not Blaze, not anyone. I had forgotten what it felt like to be cared for, even in the smallest of ways. And in that second, my chest tightened with a storm I could neither name nor control. The memory that lingers. Ethan said nothing. He simply helped, then sat back under the shade of the umbrella, pulling his knees close to his chest as he stared out at the waves. For him, it was a passing moment. For me, it was the beginning of an echo that still hasn't faded. I remember sitting there, watching the water, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Guilt gnawed at me, not because of what happened, but because of how much it revealed about myself. The problem was not Ethan. The problem was me. That moment forced me to face something I had buried for years: my loneliness, my hunger for affection, my aching need to be noticed. When Blaze neglected me, I told myself it was fine. When our marriage faded into routine, I told myself it was normal. But there, on that beach, a truth surfaced. I had been starving for the smallest gesture of care, so much that even my son's innocent help broke me wide open. That is what haunts me. That is why I cannot forget. Returning home that evening, I tried to carry on as though nothing had shifted. I cooked dinner, folded laundry, asked Ethan about school. On the surface, life went on. Yet beneath it, there was a crack, a fracture in the way I saw myself, my family, my marriage. When Blaze returned home, he greeted us mechanically, pressing a kiss on Lily's head, nodding at Ethan, barely glancing my way. His presence filled the house, physically, but left it emotionally barren. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him what his absence had done to me, but the words died in my throat as always. Instead, I swallowed them like bitter medicine and carried on. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to Blaze's steady breathing beside me. And all I could think about was how a single ordinary moment on a beach had revealed the emptiness of everything else. The days that followed, Ethan never mentioned it again. He went about his days, lost in his music, his friends, his quiet teenage world. But I noticed the way he lingered sometimes, the way his eyes followed me when he thought I wasn't looking. Was he aware of the shift? Or was it only me? I'll never know. What I do know is that silence grew heavier in that house. Silence between me and Blaze. Silence within myself. Silence that screamed louder than words ever could. The second beach trip. A week later, another weekend arrived. Blaze was gone again, as always. The house felt suffocating under the summer heat. I asked Ethan if he wanted to go back to the beach. I don't know why I suggested it. Perhaps I wanted to reclaim the memory, to prove to myself that it was nothing, that I could handle it. Perhaps I wanted to test my limits, to see how fragile I had truly become. This time, the beach was even emptier. We walked across the sand in silence, the sound of waves crashing like a heartbeat against the shore. And though nothing happened, though we spoke of ordinary things, though we sat together under the sun like any mother and son might, the weight inside me grew heavier, because I realized then the danger was not in what he did. The danger was in what I felt, the guilt and the truth. For 2 years, I have carried that moment with me, not as a scandalous secret, not as a hidden sin, but as a mirror I cannot bear to look into. It was never about Ethan. It was never about anything inappropriate between us. It was about me, my loneliness, my emptiness, my hunger for love. That day forced me to confront truths I didn't want to face. That my marriage was hollow, that my life felt invisible, that a single gesture of care could shatter me because I had gone so long without it. And so the memory lingers, haunting me, not because of what was done, but because of what it revealed. Closing reflection. Some stories don't end with fireworks or disasters. Some don't end at all. They just live inside you, replaying, whispering, shaping how you see yourself forever. This was mine. A day at the beach, a bottle of sunscreen, a simple, ordinary act that became extraordinary only because of the silence it exposed inside me. I don't share this to invite judgment. I share it because maybe, somewhere, someone else understands what it feels like to be unseen for so long, that even the smallest kindness becomes unforgettable. If you are listening, if you've stayed with me through this confession, I ask only this: hold close to those who love you. Do not let neglect turn you into a shadow of yourself. Do not let silence eat away at your soul, because sometimes it is not betrayal from others that ruins us. It is the quiet erosion of being unseen, year after year, until one day we look in the mirror and no longer recognize who we are. That was my unexpected situation. Not a scandal, not a sin, but a haunting truth about loneliness and how it can change everything.